Prince Charles has tested positive for COVID for a second time and is self-isolating. It's understood he met with the Queen just 2 days ago, but a palace source says she hasn't been displaying any symptoms. It isn't confirmed whether or not she's tested positive or negative. A warning, there are flashing images in this report from our royal correspondent, Nicholas Witchell.
The British Museum in London last night. A reception for the British Asian Trust. The guests of honour, the Prince of Wales and his wife, the Duchess of Cornwall. Everyone was shaking hands quite freely. Among the guests the Prince met and shook hands with was the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak. Roughly 12 hours after these pictures were taken, this morning, Charles took a routine COVID test. It was positive. It's the second time he's caught COVID. He's triple vaccinated. He's thought to be coping well. But 2 days ago, Charles was presiding at an investiture at Windsor Castle, and while he was there, he met the Queen. She'd just returned from Sandringham, where she'd been seen in good spirits at the weekend, marking the 70th anniversary of her accession to the throne. So, inevitably, a concern. Might she have contracted COVID during the meeting with the Prince of Wales?
As with all medical or health-related matters, Buckingham Palace is saying the absolute minimum. All that royal sources will say is that the Queen is not displaying any symptoms of COVID.
It can safely be assumed that the Queen has been triple vaccinated, but it's not known whether she's been tested for COVID or what any such tests have indicated. All the palace will say is that the situation is being monitored. Nicholas Witchell, BBC News.
They are America's first line of defense. Best of friends.
Howdy, Captain. Now for the Earth. Here we go.
Fierce competitors.
Very nicely done. Almost as good as me.
Ready to protect our nation against any threat.
Carrying the nukes. You love having the power of God at your fingertips.
Not tonight, buddy.
But what if the enemy is one of them?
What the hell are you doing?
We got pilots down.
We got ourselves a broken arrow.
A broken what? It's what we call it when we lose a nuclear weapon. I don't know what's scarier, losing nuclear weapons, but that it happens so often there's actually a term for it.
The only thing more dangerous than what he knows.
They believe they've got an exposed core. They got to send in a nuclear emergency search team. By the time they find us, we'll be gone.
Is what he's prepared to do.
$250 million by 0900 Utah time. If you have not... Good God. I don't know what the big deal is. I really don't.
But there's one thing
Smile, boys, we're about to retire.
he didn't count on.
I know his mind works. You gotta let me go after him.
Outstanding, Hale. That's the spirit. Would you mind not shooting at the thermonuclear weapons?
And what are we doing?
If you enter the wrong code 3 times, the nuke goes dead.
Unless, of course, I already thought of that ahead of time. You just activated a nuclear warhead, my friend. clock is ticking. Care for a Coke or something?
John Travolta,
You lose.
Christian Slater,
You're out of your mind.
Ain't it cool?
Broken Arrow, a John Woo film.
Tens of thousands of people protested across Austria against the renewed restrictions and the vaccine mandate, as Europe again becomes the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic. Austria entered its fourth lockdown on Monday. The whole nation, including those who are fully vaccinated, have to stay home for all but essential reasons, including work, exercise, and shopping for essentials. Austria is also the first European country to make the COVID vaccination a legal requirement, with the law due to take effect in February. The penalty for not getting vaccinated by that time are heavy fines. I spoke to Austrian activist Alexander Schugel, who is against the new measures.
The government wants to force us to get vaccinated, and if we do not get vaccinated, we are not allowed to work, we're not allowed to go anywhere, we are not allowed to do anything, and we have to pay 3,600 euros as a fine. And obviously the fine can be, the state can ask me a few times to pay this fine because we don't know the rules yet. We don't know what would happen if you pay the fine afterwards. You're still unvaccinated. What are they going to do? Viennese demonstration was by far the biggest demonstration I've ever seen, and also historically one of the biggest demonstrations we ever had in Austria. With confidence we can say that around 100,000 people, maybe even a little bit more, came to this demonstration. Austria is, as you know, a quite small country. We only have less than 9 million inhabitants, and 100,000 people is really a huge number. And now many people want to do a strike. So many people want to stop working in order to force the government to stop those terrible rules. And I know personally that lots of demonstrations will happen today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and so on, around all of Austria. So yes, people do not let themselves getting locked in again by this unjust government. The protests will go on, and I think lots of people are now ready to resist and will resist. And therefore, I can't really imagine that the forced vaccination will come the way the government planned it. The problem is obviously Austria is a country where it starts. It's not going to be only Austria at the end. Lots of other countries will follow. They will also implement some rules like this. A question about the freedom to decide whether or not you want to put a certain medication into your body or not. And that's quite a huge thing, actually.
The streets of Austria are once again quiet as cafe terraces stood empty and shops remained closed. The reimposition of COVID-19 restrictions turned violent in Belgium and the Netherlands over the weekend, which could be an indication of more to come as governments across the EU clamp down on restrictions in a bid to curb the spread of coronavirus. Valerie Brown, The Sun.
Igor, you and I shall be at the very heart of a scientific enterprise that will change the world. We shall create a life out of death. It's alive.
Do you realise how significant this is?
Oh, I have an inkling.
I'm Detective Inspector Turpin. I'm here to investigate missing body parts.
I'm not sure what you mean, sir.
Are you not afraid to challenge the natural order, Mr. Frankenstein?
No. And it's Frankenstein. We shall create a man after our own image. Questions? Well, you're welcome. I think it is time you met our monster. Victor, no! Full charge! Well, that's rather obvious. You have the chance to be part of something.
Of what? Being electrocuted? Chased by monsters? And hunted by the police?
Well, if you're going to concentrate on the dark side...
Be careful, Mr. Frankenstein. You toy with wrathful forces.
I cannot argue with that.
Like a vision out of Dante's Inferno.
Monsters did this.
Not monsters. Men. America? I guess they don't have the fighting spirit no more. They just do whatever the fucking Fuhrer tells them to do.
We gotta set this right, Grace. Put the fighting spirit back in the American people. Ignite a revolution.
You want to strike fear in the Nazis? You want to cause some real motherfucking havoc? Well, then you come to the right woman. You still got some Nazi fighting killing skills up in you? I got a plan that's gonna send shockwaves throughout the nation.
Let's get this freak show on the road.
Throw it out in a blaze of glory, hallelujah!
I got a nuke in this here fire extinguisher.
Yes, of course! That sounds so good.
You should join us. We could always use more good people.
I'm sorry. Did you need this boat?
Yes, motherfucker.
They brought this war to our shores!
People gotta know they don't have to take this shit no more.
My brothers and sisters of the United States of America, tonight, we, the free people of the resistance, ask you to become one of us.